Okay. And we're going to talk about Balaam. Balaam, the pagan prophet who prophesied against his will, who blessed Israel against his will. And we can learn something about what will happen in the end times from what he said. Also important principles from what he said. And, the Israelites had come out of Egypt, and they'd wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, and they came to the edge of Canaan, and they had conquered Sichon and Og, the kingdoms of Sichon and Og east of the Jordan, that was the eastern portions of the promised land of Israel, and these were kingdoms associated with the Amorites. And they also neighboured the countries of Ammon and Moab, who were distant relations were related to the people of Israel, but had an entirely different culture of their own. And the king of Moab, Balak, was afraid that the Israelites were going to harm him, and not only harm him, but change the whole international arrangements, the whole setup that existed, to upset the bucket, one could say. And so he also feared for the well-being of his kingdom. He had a combination of a motivation. He himself was a great man, and that is, he had powers. He had powers of a magician. He knew things, understood things, and he was compared to Bilaam, who he importuned, who he prevailed upon to come and curse the children of Israel. So King Balak of Moab, he sent to Bilaam. Bilaam lived in a place called Pethor on the Euphrates River, and he was apparently known internationally as a religious figure, a person of spiritual standing, who had the powers to curse or bless others. And Balak believed that if he would come and bless, that is, curse the Israelites, then this would work. That this would diminish the ability of the Israelites to do anything, to express themselves. So he sent a group of emissaries to Bilaam. Balak, that is Balak of Moab, sent to Bilaam a group of emissaries to come and curse Israel. And he sent twice. The first time Bilaam refused to come, and Bilaam always emphasized that if God does not want to curse them, he will not be able to do anything. The second time he agreed to go. And we should learn what we can from this. We should see that a curse can be turned into a blessing. Sometimes a person has a run of bad luck. The powers of adversity sometimes impugn upon a person's ability to express himself, to live. But he can use this, if he can prevail over them, he can use them and turn them into a source of blessing. And he can then use them to enhance his ability to make a comeback, one could say. And we should endeavour to use whatever we have to our own advantage. Whatever comes your way, try and use it for a good purpose. Even if something bad or negative comes to you, so try and see the good in it and try and use it as a means to go forward. And do what we can. At all events, you should do what you can. God has predetermined to us our possibilities, but we don't always know what we can do or cannot do. So we work according to what our eyes see, what we understand, what the possibilities of the time are, and from that we can often advance onwards. And so too, on a national level, we should realize that the Israelites had been blessed. They've been blessed, they had a great destiny, and they should realize their destiny, appreciate it, realize that this is what makes them special, that they are special, they are chosen, they are the Israelites, they are the lost 10 tribes. And they have to know this, they should know this, it's to their advantage to know this, to be aware of it, and to use it, to take advantage of it, to do good, as they understand, and to seek to do good. Moab and Ammon were also within this area, but they were to be left in small enclaves, surrounded by Israelite territory according to the promises, and eventually they too would be controlled by Israel. And Balak knew this and he was afraid of it. It perturbed him. And so the present-day area is now occupied by Egypt, that is east of the Delta, of Jordan, of Lebanon, Syria. They all should belong to Israel in the future. They will do. And they know this. They are aware of it. And they try and harm Israel. Not because of that, but not only because of that, because this is all in the future and they couldn't really care that much. But they have, one could say, an anti-Jewish prejudice. They hate the Jews. They think the Jews, they see the Jews as something that shouldn't exist, or that as if the Jews had taken something from them. And all the Gentiles of the world have this attitude to some degree. And their religions are based on it. That the Jews were the chosen people, but the Jews didn't behave as they should, therefore the role of being a chosen people was taken away and given to others. And the Jews are just hanging on and trying to take what does not belong to them. And they should have what the Jews have, or what the Jews claim to have, and therefore they are against the Jewish people. So this is, and the Jewish people are the only portion of the Israelite nations that are recognized as being Israelites. We also have, other peoples who also descend from Israelites to a large degree, but they are not aware of it, they're not conscious of it, and even those who are conscious of it do not realize its significance. We do not realize its significance. We do not internalize it. We are not sufficiently aware of the potential that is there, even though we reach out and try and do so. We had originally 12 tribes of Israel. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were the forefathers of the Israelite nation. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Jacob was renamed Israel. Israel had 12 sons. These 12 sons became the forefathers of the Israelite tribes, 12 tribes. These 12 tribes conquered the land of Canaan, and they divided up amongst them, and they went through different periods, a period of judges and the period of the kings. So the first king was King Saul. After King Saul came King David. After David came King Solomon, who built the temple. David established the capital of the country in Jerusalem. His son Solomon built the temple in Jerusalem, and they were quite powerful for a short period. And in the time of the son of Solomon, Rehoboam, the kingdom divided. 10 of the tribes, the northern section, separated and set up its own independent kingdom, known as the Kingdom of Israel, or sometimes referred to as Samaria after its capital, or its main province in the end times, also known as Joseph, as Ephraim, and as I said, as the Kingdom of Israel, referred to as Israel, and other names. And these 10 tribes are independent. They existed, the two separate sections of the Israelite peoples, that is Judah in the south, and the northern tribes. Judah comprised the tribes of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi, and from them came the core elements, the basic elements of the Jewish people descend from them, from the kingdom of Judah. And Judah also includes members of all of the tribes, but the other tribes represented minorities. Their tribal expression was to be achieved by them in their places of exile. At all events, the 10 tribes that were separated after about 200 years they were conquered by the Assyrians. The Assyrians took them into exile from their places of exile, they again separated in different pathways and migrated. They all moved to the west. They became the peoples of Western Europe. And from Western Europe they populated the USA and Canada and Australia, New Zealand, South Africa and other places. And that is where the lost 10 tribes are. We don't say that everyone in those areas is descended from Israelites, but a good portion of them are. And that is where they were destined to give expression to their tribal ancestry, to their tribal identity in those areas, according to our understanding of the Bible. Now, understanding of the Bible is based on the simple Hebrew meaning of the Bible, the simple Hebrew meaning of the Hebrew Bible, and also on rabbinical commentators that explain this to us, and on other sources, also on history, and numerous fields of study that all comes together into one comprehensive, holistic body of evidence. So that is what we have. So getting back to Bilaam and Balak, Balak invited us, importuned, prevailed upon Bilaam to come and the curse the Israelites. And he did, and he came there. He came to Moab, he came to Balak, and he set up 7 altars 3 times. In other words, altogether 21 altars. And he only made 3 attempts to curse Israel, and each time a blessing came out. And when he did not succeed in making the blessing, Balak was angry at him and ordered him to go back. So Bilaam gave him advice how to destroy the Israelites, or how to seriously cripple them, one could say spiritually, through sexual promiscuity, and also he also prophesied what would happen to the Israelites in the end times. So these blessings that Bilaam gave, and also his prophecy that would happen to Israel in the end times, can later tell us what is going on with us now in our days. And the whole message is important, is as educational value, and we have insights here that are worth noting. So we'll go ahead, as we said, and the children of Israel, they came to an area on the plains of Moab by Jericho, and Balak the son of Zippor saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. And Moab was so afraid of the people because there were many, and Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. The Israelites were very numerous. Even by today's standards they were numerous, and that time relative was speaking even more so. And he sent messages, says Balak. Now it's talking about Balak, the king of Moab, who was perturbed by the presence of the Israelites. Some numerous Israelites had just come out, destroyed, wiped out 2 neighbouring kingdoms of his. 2 neighbouring kingdoms the Israelites had wiped out. And he was afraid that something similar or something bad would happen to him as well. And he didn't, and they were extremely numerous. And he didn't rely upon it, he didn't have the military might to withstand them, but he thought by cursing them, he could cause spiritual forces to come against them, and perhaps in that way to overcome them. And this is what so he called Bilaam. Bilaam came. Bilaam set up altars, and each time he set up an altar, he tried to curse the children of Israel. And Moab was so afraid of the people because there were many, and Moab was distressed because of the children of Israel. Moab said unto the elders of Midian. Midian was a neighbouring country, an ally of Moab. Midian was also the country from Jethro came. Jethro was a priest of Midian. The father-in-law of Moses came from Midian originally, even though he separated himself and attached himself to the Israelites. But Moses did, in that way did have some association with them. And when Moab said unto the elders of Midian, now shall this company lick up all that is around us, and lead up everything around us, as ox, as a bull, licks up the grass of the field. And Balak the son of Zippor was king of the Moabites at that time. And he sent messengers therefore unto Bilaam the son of Beor, to Bethel, which is by the river of the land of the children of his people, by the river that means the Euphrates, to the Euphrates river, to call him, saying, behold, there's a people come out of Egypt, behold, they come to the face of the earth, and they bite over against me. And Bilaam also came. Bilaam hated you. So Balak had an excuse. Balak was in a difficult situation. He was worried for the good of his people. He wanted to save them. He could say that he was doing that for the sake of his nation. Whereas Bilaam came, we learned from the verses indicate this, out of pure hatred. There are people who hate Israelites for no reason whatsoever, or for reasons of their own, or just for the sake of it. So Balaam was one of these people. And Balak asked Bilaam, come therefore, I pray you, curse me this people, for they are too many for me, too mighty for me. Perhaps I shall prevail that we may kill them, and that I may drive them out of the land. For I know that who you blessed is blessed, and who you cursed is cursed. Balaam was reputed to have spiritual powers. Our people with spiritual powers. It exists. It happened. It's a reality. Also, we have there is a spiritual dimension to existence. Even we'll see now that the donkey of Bilaam also had spiritual perceptions. We have you have heard the expression rats deserting a sinking ship, because in the old days we used to have sailing ships and steamboats, and the conditions weren't as hygienic as they are today. So a lot of those ships had rats in them. When the rats would come to a port, it was a tradition, when the rats would come to a port, they let down ropes to anchor the ships to the wharfs. And the rats sometimes would race down these ropes. Some big ropes, you see those big ropes, they're about this thick. Enormous ropes to tie the ship to the wharf. Anyway, the rats would race down them, and the sailors had a belief, a superstition, one could say, that the rats know that this ship is going to sink. And the next time out, this ship is going to sink, so they were leaving. So that's where we have the expression, rats deserting a sinking ship. For people who belong to a company, belong to an organisation, they see that something is wrong, there's going to be problems, so they all leave. Rats deserting a sinking ship is called. That's where the expression comes from. And we have this, we have dogs. Dogs see ghosts. People report ghosts and dogs start barking. Why is that? It's known, this phenomenon. There also have people who have insights, see things. My father, my grandfather, they claim to have seen ghosts. And in England you have more ghosts than anywhere else, any other country in the earth, they say. So my father was in India and he saw a whole lot of things, strange things going on there. All over the world you have these things going on. But also the Bible is very much against it. The Bible is against dealing with demons. The Bible is against seances, talking to the dead. The Bible is against worshipping idols, making contact with idols. And even if, whether you consider these idols to be false beliefs, that there's nothing there, simple inventions, or that there really are supernatural powers, you are forbidden to make contact with them. Be simple, be whole with the Lord your God. That is a commandment, to believe in God and cling to God, and not go worship, going after idols and idol matters like that. Even some things that are apparently innocuous lead to it. A lot of these ideas of extra-terrestrial beings, space creatures, aliens coming in flying saucers and things like this, that also overlaps when you get into it and you look at it with beliefs in demons and things like that. They try and make demons as part to be legitimate. So the Bible is against it. Whether it's true or not, it's another matter. Whether there's something in it or not, there's something else. Whatever it is, the Bible forbids you to occupy yourself with such matters. So we should know that. It's worth noting. And we're talking about this because recently something came up that called our attention to it, and it's worth noting. That anyway, we have this idea of a spiritual existence, of people having powers to bless, powers to curse, and so on. And Bilaam was one of these people who had power, was known to have power to bless and power to curse. In Numbers 27:7, the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian departed with the words of divination in their hand. They came and Balaam spake unto them the words of Balak, and they were united against Israel. They came all, and see now all the nations of the earth also united against the state of Israel, almost. So this happens. And he said unto them, and he told them to wait there that night, and he said he'll tell them, he'll ask God what will happen, and anyway in the morning, he told them that he couldn't, that God wouldn't let him go. And the Lord, God appeared unto him. God said unto Bilaam, you shall not go with them, you shall not curse the people, for they are also blessed. And and then in the morning he told them that he couldn't come. We should also note that the name Bilaam is not just, we have external, we have additional sources for the existence of Bilaam. In an area, in a place, Sukkot, it's known as Sukkot, probably the area known as Sukkot in the Bible, in the territory of Gad, is an archaeological finds, is also known as Deir Allah, it's now in the country of Jordan, and they found an inscription. An inscription was written in ink on plaster, and it had been destroyed by an earthquake, and the date the earthquake to 750 BCE, so it must have been written before then. And the two sides to this inscription is quite long, and it was they found it in the hole when they found it, but the Arabs broke it up into smaller pieces, but the pieces exist, so they've been trying to put it together, and to some degree they have succeeded, even though how it should be read is not certain. It use a mixture of Aramaic and Hebrew, ancient Aramaic and ancient Hebrew, mixed dialect combining the elements of two, which is interesting, showing that the tribes east of the Jordan had already influenced by the Arameans who lived closer to them, and they had begun to use that language. It was used. It was also an alternative language. And in this inscription, there's two sides to it. On one side of it, it talks about Netzah, which was a god who died and was resurrected, similar to Baal worship. And the other side, it also talks about Baal worship, and it mentions Bilaam. Bilaam as being a great sorcerer, and he was apparently revered by them. In other words, there was a kind of pagan religion adopted by some of the Israelites that worshipped Bilaam much later, hundreds of years later. So this story of Bilaam also reflects upon the ongoing spiritual conflicts that were occurring within the empire of Israel much later. And note that our friend Orion Svensson, he analysed this inscription, and he found similarities to ancient Swedish and to Swedish pagan religions in this inscription, which is interesting. And also the place where the inscription was found is associated with the territory of Gad, and we identify Gad as having settled in Sweden, at least to some degree. So that is a point that we came across. At all events, Numbers 22:13, Bilaam rose up in the morning and said unto the princes of Balak, get unto your lands, for the Lord refused to give me leave to go with you. And so they got up and they went back. And Balak sent more princes, sent another mishlahat, another group of emissaries to Bilaam, with more important dignitaries, with more gifts. And he told them the same, that he cannot do anything that God will not allow him to do. But he told them to wait overnight, and he would try and make contact with the Almighty and see what he says. So at that night God appeared unto him and said, the God in effect said to him to go with them if you wish to go with them. But you will not say anything that I have not told you to do. So Bilaam rose up in the morning, and he saddled his ass, and he went with the princes of Moab. But God was angry with him, In other words, he had actually misinterpreted what God had said. The answer he'd received was ambiguous, but he should ambivalent. Ambiguous, but he should have understood that the Almighty did not want him to go. But he insisted on interpreting in the way as if he had received permission. So the Almighty was angry with him, and when he was on the way, he was riding upon his ass, his female donkey, and he had 2 servants with him, and an angel stood in the way against him. And the donkey saw the angel. Bilaam didn't see it, at least not at first. And as we said, sometimes animals have a sixth sense. They see things. Dogs see ghosts, and so on. And sometimes rats get off a sinking ship. We have other phenomena. A lot of things happen. Actually, a lot of things happen. There's a whole science on this. Before earthquakes, the whole of nature changes and so on. Some people say that there's scientific explanations that the animals feel some type of disturbance in the ground, building up before an earthquake comes to pass. Doesn't matter. So some things have a natural explanation, some things are more spiritual. Also, I don't know, I was once living in the south of Israel, in Susia, in the region of Susia, southern area of Israel. And part of what I used to do was I used to help conduct tours, donkey trips for school children, young girls, young boys at high school age. It's a big thing in Israel. They all go on different trips, and in that area there's a lot of archaeological finds, a lot of interesting finds, historical finds, and they've also reconstructed a lot of ancient houses and so on, and it's very educational and enlightening and interesting. So what they used to do, they used to take the children, or the young men, sometimes young boys, young girls, so take them off to some place, to some site to see, and have a look around, show them around, give them a lecture, say and eat something, I don't know, from 9 to 10, 9 to 11, and then at 11 o'clock I had to be there with the donkey saddled up, and then they all get on the donkeys, and then I'd help lead them around, and that would be a donkey trip. And that was how, and I was in charge of getting the donkeys from one place to another. So I'm not very big. I don't like animals very much, but this was a job I had, and I found I could communicate with the donkeys. I used to saddle them up and put them on the road, and then I was quite physically fit, and used to run with the donkeys. There's open plains across the desert, sometimes up hills, down hills, or along the road. And when I wanted the donkeys to turn, they'd understand me. That I wanted them to turn their turn before me. I'd be like, I wouldn't be at the head of the herd. I'd be somewhere in the first section in the middle, and I'd want to turn and they'd turn. So, and the donkeys have powers of intuition. That doesn't mean I'm like Balaam. I can think of better people who I'd like to emulate or be compared to, but it's an insight. Anyway, the donkey saw the angel. The angel was standing there with his sword, and the donkey would go to the side, and Bilaam would get angry at it. And in the end, the donkey stood in a narrow section of the pathway with the walls on each side, and the donkey would try, actually, and that's the female donkey, would try and avoid the angel, so she pushed herself up against the wall, and the leg of Balaam was caught between the donkey and the wall, and it crushed his foot, and he got even more angry at it. So, and then and then began beating it even more. He opened the mouth of the donkey, and the donkey spoke, or the donkey spoke, and the donkey said to him, "What have I done to you that you have hit me these 3 times?" And Bilaam said unto the axe, "Because you have mocked me, ridiculed me. If I had a sword in my hand, I would kill you." And the ass said unto Bilaam, "I'm your ass. You've ridden upon me ever since I was belong to you until this time. I have never done to you anything bad. Have I ever done anything wrong? And he said, no. Then the Lord opened the eyes of Bilaam, and he saw the angel of the Lord standing in the way, and a sword drawn in his hand. He bowed down and said, and fell flat on his face. And the angel of the Lord said unto him, where hast thou smitten your ass three times? Behold, I went out to withstand you, because your way is perverse before me. And the ass saw me and turned from me these 3 times, and this she had turned from me. Surely now also I had slain you, and saved her alive. And Bilaam said unto the angel of the Lord, I have sinned. For I knew not you stood in the way against me. Now, therefore, if it displeases you, I will get me back again. The angel of the Lord said unto Bilaam, go with the pen, not only the word that I shall speak unto you shall speak, only that. So Bilaam went with the princes of Balak. And they went up, and he met Balaam. So we'll shorten up a bit, because there's a lot of text, but it's interesting. And then Balak brought Bilaam to a high place, that is a height, overlooking the encampment of the children of Israel. The place is called the high places of Baal. And Bilaam acknowledged the God of Israel as the God of all, the one God, but he also worshipped Baal. He tried to combine, to make a synthesis of the worship of Baal with that of God. And the Israelites also fell into a similar belief later on, before they were exiled. And so this apparently is what Balaam began. Just a second, is anyone any comments, any questions? I see some people are falling to sleep. I think it's very exciting and interesting, but apparently some of you have had a hard day. Is you got anything to say in the meanwhile? Any questions in the meantime? Okay, we'll go on.
I have a question.
Yeah.
My question is, if I recall correctly, the word that was used in reference to the angel that impeded Balaam's progress was shaitan.
Yes.
Like adversary.
Yes.
Is that true? How do you see that?
So, if I remember, the Satan is used in verbal form. In Hebrew, the word Satan can mean, as you say, adversary. It means to act as an adversary, to be counter to something, to be against something, negative towards something. But it hasn't necessarily any connotations beyond that. It's not necessarily, it doesn't mean anything connected with the Satan, the devil. It just means something negative. You can understand either way, but that is a simple meaning.
Okay, thanks.